Hello, Aries, and welcome to your bi-weekly-ish reading where we look at, I was feeling that card, where we look at the full moon lunar eclipse that we're about to have, and from the full moon to the new moon, right? So if you want to know more about this particular full moon, and it's a full moon in Scorpio in tropical astrology, it's in Libra and sidereal astrology. I do talk about this more in depth for a few minutes at the beginning of the videos for the monthly, so I would definitely go check that out. It has timestamps, so you can easily skip to that chapter and just kind of like go listen to that. So I want to make sure that these are short and sweet just to give you a little bit of guidance. So what themes are coming up for you during this full moon lunar eclipse to the new moon? So remember that with the full moon to the new moon, the energy is waning. So we have not only a full moon lunar eclipse in the south node, which is about releasing and letting go, but on top of that, it is the phase that goes to this through this waning, which is definitely also about release. So you might notice the patterns that come up around the full moon lunar eclipse kind of moving through the rest of like that 2-week period, basically, right? So let's get some spiritual advice as well. I think this is so apropos for this eclipse, for this lunar eclipse, right? Interesting. And I was also feeling this card, so I guess you're getting two. Oh, interesting cards, Aries. All right, so I know it doesn't look the greatest, but don't worry, we'll get into it. So let's talk about this. Some big themes I see like really coming up. So let's start with just acknowledging that the first eclipse that had a start eclipse season was a solar eclipse in Aries, right? So it was a solar eclipse in Aries. You're an Aries sign, and so I feel like that is something that would make it feel probably more prominent in what it activated in your life, what it initiated in your life. So seeing that, and now we see that Pluto, which Scorpio, the modern rulership for Scorpio is Pluto. It's also in traditional astrology Mars, but so it is Pluto, right? So we see that with this now lunar eclipse in the with the south node, it's happening with Pluto, which means it's related to its sign. I feel like there's going to be some deep transformative kind of themes that are really coming up here for you. Could be around fears that you have, could also be like looking at things that maybe perhaps feel intense, that feel like maybe you haven't really wanted to address or look at fully. And sometimes that intensity can be incredibly uncomfortable, especially with the moon in Scorpio. It's not a place that feels comfortable. So you could be feeling like a lot of the themes around this. So this particular eclipse season, for those of you who are Aries sun or rising, you might be really feeling this because like the energy seems to be really kind of coming together and bookending this for this particular reading, which hopefully that makes sense to you guys. But suffice it to say, like there are enough synchronicities and connections here where I'm like, whoo, you guys are feeling it. And remember that Pluto is also about transformation. Often Pluto gets talked about from the place of like what is hard about Pluto and what shadows there are, and we can't deny that, right? Like definitely Pluto can be about the shadows, the hard things, about secrets coming to light, from lies, manipulations, coercion, how we either have had a loss of power in our life or how we give away our power. So power dynamics can definitely be a part of this. And also Pluto can really, when we step into and really face these things that we maybe don't feel comfortable with necessarily, we can really move into a transformative place where we feel more in touch with our own personal power, right? The thing about Pluto is it attempts to bring us into a position where we're more in contact with our own power. So hopefully that makes sense. Like this is not, I'm not saying that it's easy to do necessarily. And it can feel really challenging. And also when we can stand and face those things and just kind of accept, okay, like this is what's here for me to deal with. I can either shy away from it and continue to turn away from that, or I can really move through this in a more powerful way. That's part of the lesson of Pluto, right? So it's that rebirth that this particular card shows as well. So with that, we have 2 cards that came out for your spiritual advice, and we have the Tower card and we have the 10 of Swords. So let's start with the Tower card, you know, for spiritual advice. And here's the thing with the Tower card, of course, it's, again, we're talking about themes that are not comfortable, about releasing, about letting go, about letting the structure fall, right? It's basically saying like, look, the foundation that this structure was built on is not going to be able to stand the test of time, right? It's like, it has to be leveled to start from like go back to the drawing board, right? Like square one, and rebuild from a more sustainable place, rebuild from a place that is more stable and secure, right? And so in order to do that, we have to relinquish control over certain things and let go, right? This whole releasing is a big part of this particular lunar eclipse, right? Is just like let go of the things that are not working, the things that really don't have the value that is aligned with us, that is going to stand the test of time. And yes, those moments can be uncomfortable, but part of what's here in the Tower card is if you embrace the process and instead, like, I'm not saying like, oh, let's all just be positive about things and like totally bypass. It's more like, okay, let me just accept and be present to like, this is reality. This is what's happening. Let me face this. Let me work with this. Let me glean the knowledge. Let me let this grind and work me into like becoming more present, becoming more powerful in my life, becoming more of a creator of my life, right? It tries to bring us into a place of like agency in our lives, right? Like you can make a choice to allow that to fall and like, okay, good. Now I can create from scratch all over again. I can make things how in the image of like what it is that I truly want. So it clears the playing field, right? And that, you know, again, I'm not denying that that's uncomfortable. However, I'm saying that sometimes it is necessary. And the more we try to hold on to those things and like try to deny those things, that's what makes it more tower-like. It feels more painful and more like destructive and feeling like decimated from the experience. You know, and one of the things that also just I'll point out that is not really illustrated necessarily very well in this particular card. You can see the crown at the top kind of barely, maybe. Try to get that closer so you can see that. Typically what we see is a lightning bolt hitting the crown, and think about that as the crown chakra, your crown of consciousness and connection to the divine, right? And so it's just like making sure that you just understand that it's almost like an opportunity for an awakening, right? It's like being shaken up so that you can wake up to something. I'm sure that most of us have experienced that in our lives by this point, where it's like we've had certain situations come in and shake us to wake us up, and suddenly it's kind of like, wow, how did I not address that before? How, like, my life is so much better now that I have on the other side of it, right? But it's uncomfortable in the meantime, right? And then we have the 10 of Swords also as part of your spiritual advice, right? So if it wasn't clear, the spiritual advice here is to like accept the things that need to like be released and need to go. And the more that you can embrace and face what's there, the more you can be empowered to make decisions to rebuild from a place of consciousness and really rebuild your life or whatever it is in a way that relationships, your health, maybe, like it could be like projects, whatever it is, right? So it's like, and we see this theme is just continuing throughout and including this particular card too, right? So the 10 of Swords is speaking to like, hey, the patterns that were going on, like, let them go, be done with them, right? There's no need to kick a dead horse, right? This guy is clearly like one sword would have done it. He's got 10, right? Like it's overkill. Enough. Let go of that cycle, that pattern, that thing that no longer fits. And like the thing is, the part of the message with this particular card, and again, like with this card, I think it's a little bit harder to see, but there is this dawning of a new day. Usually you can kind of see like the sun glow coming from behind the mountain range there. And like, this is when you allow yourself to let go of that, right? When you go through, and typically when you see this card, it's like black around the edges so you can see it's nighttime, right? When you let go of that and you go through that, perhaps feeling like a dark night, the grief of letting go of things that maybe you've put a lot of energy and attention and time into, and just seeing like what doesn't work and accepting that, you can then come into a space where the dawn of a new day comes through and you're now clear and clean from all of those things. There is more spaciousness for you to come in and create what it is that you really want to create for yourself. So I know that this doesn't necessarily, it's not like the happiest kind of message. And also I hope that it is helpful. Now, obviously this isn't going to hit for every single Aries rising or sun sign. So if this is your sun sign, I encourage you to watch your rising sign, you know, but also like if you want something specific, best way to do that is to get a personal reading. All of that information is in the description below. And I also will have up on the screen the May readings so that you can go listen to the astrology at the beginning of that there. Like I said, there are timestamps for that there. So I hope that this was helpful. Thank you for being here. Please remember to hit like, subscribe, all those things, hit the notification bell. It's definitely helpful, but also so you don't miss any of the videos coming out as I continue to put out more content. So thanks for being here. Bye.